is a place, there is a moment, there is a feeling and escape from your ordinary way. There is a place, there is a time, there is a reason to make today an extraordinary day. Look what you're missing, look what you're missing. There's a world for you to see, paradise to set you free. Look what you're missing, look what you're missing. Come along, I'll take you there, an adventure we can share. There is a place.
Hello there, my name is Warren Elwood,
And I'm Henk Kutsia.
and this is Look What You're Missing. It's the TV series in which we're going to introduce you to the exhilarating world of travel by adventure bike. Now I don't mind telling you, the first time I heard the words adventure bike, well, I had these horrible images flashing through my mind of me stuck halfway up a mountain somewhere on a mountain bike. And most of this lot waiting on the top for me, because I'm really not much of a mountain biker. But this is an adventure bike, and it's got to be the most enjoyable, the most exciting, and did we say exhilarating way to see South Africa, or Africa, or in fact the world.
This series will feature the places, the people, the history and the culture we've discovered during our travels, as well as introduce you to the wonderful world of exploring this beautiful land by motorcycle. And that's why it's called Look What You're Missing, because we want to share this special way of exploring with you.
Now in line with that, we're going to be sharing with you hordes of tips and tricks that we've learned over the years. And we're going to introduce you to various experts in their fields as we take you through the equipment that we use, so that hopefully your journeys can start off a little easier.
The first area we're exploring is the Agterpakkers area, which includes the Bitter Valley and beyond, all of which lies in the northern regions of the majestic Cederberg mountain range.
Before we get into this week's episode, let's have a closer look at adventure biking. A dual sport or adventure bike is a street legal motorcycle that is designed for both on and off-road use. Engine capacities range from as little as 200cc right up to 1300cc, with many manufacturers sharing the market. Put simply, they are sort of like large enduro bikes that can handle almost any type of terrain, but can easily cruise on tar roads at highway speeds. They are also robust, infinitely practical with extensive accessory and luggage options, and have an upright riding position that provides day-long comfort with superior vision.
It is said that only 10% of South Africa's roads are tarred, so if you stick to them, you'll miss out on 90% of what South Africa has to offer. Does that make sense? And that's why we love the gravel roads, and more specifically, the little lesser-known back roads and oorgeepaaie. Now, oorgee stands for ongeskik, which in plain old English means that this road is probably not suitable for your little family saloon car.
These lesser-known roads take one to some real gems out in our country, and one will almost always be rewarded with some fantastic views and sights along the way. These little back roads are also rich in history and in culture, and with just a little bit of research before your adventure starts, it'll add that much more to your journey.
But even though gravel roads can be explored without the boundaries or limits imposed by tar roads, one also needs to respect the areas and communities you ride through, as often these roads are servitude roads and go across privately owned land. So stick to the road or track. Don't speed through between buildings. Keep an eye out for livestock and wildlife, and make sure you leave gates as you found them. A closed gate left open, or even vice versa, can cause a farmer a huge amount of trouble.
So we're about 21 odd kilometers from Clanwilliam at the moment on the R364, more specifically just over the rise of the Pakkers Pass. Now this whole road, all the way from Clanwilliam to the Englishman's Grave, was only completely tarred a few years ago. And while I suppose some will say it's taken the adventure out of adventure biking, it's not entirely a bad thing because it enables one to look around a little bit more while riding a motorcycle. And the first views of the Achterpakhuis area from up here are simply fantastic. In fact, they're worth stopping for.
There are a lot of stories of why the Pakhuis Pass was so named. One story has it that the rock formations around here look like a packed warehouse, which to me seems to be the most feasible. Built by the famous pass builder Thomas Bain, construction started in 1874 and the original pass was completed in 1877, although it's seen its share of modifications over the years. In fact, you can see a small piece of the original pass just down here below us.
Now for motorcyclists, the Pakhuis Pass is, besides being a whole heap of fun to ride on a motorcycle, it's also the gateway to another whole world. On the way up here we've passed some of the history in the area. We've passed the Kliphuis and the Claim Kliphuis. We stopped at the Soldaatkorp. We passed the grave of Louis Leipold. But this is where it really starts for me.
Absolutely. From here we find much history, rock paintings, interesting people, legends, places, and even a couple of ghost stories. You know what, Warren, why don't we start with one of those at the bottom of the pass?
So this is the Oopwoord, or rather perhaps this is the Newpoort. There's not really that much left of the old original Oopwoord. Now if this was the Wild Wild West, this is where you'd expect the bandits to be waiting to hijack your coach. Now there's not really many bandits left in these parts, but apparently there's plenty of ghosts.
Headless dogs, a baby, a bearded old man, and a huge baboon have all featured in the Oopwoord ghost stories still told today by some of the locals. A more modern legend tells of a beautiful young woman hitchhiker who causes drivers to crash their cars when her fine hair blows across their faces. Now you are free to believe these tales or not, but if you want to find out firsthand if they're true, perhaps you should make the journey through the Oopwoord at midnight and keep an eye out for a beautiful young woman hitchhiking by the side of the road. The Farm Traveller's Rest is so named because for many years that's exactly what it was. A place where travellers could outspan their animals and give them a well-deserved break before tackling either the Pakhuis Pass or the long and dusty road north to Calvinia. Today it is still a working farm, but also offers some really nice accommodation in 22 different cottages, a small restaurant, and the main attraction is a shortish hiking route along which you can view some well-preserved Bushman paintings.
So even though space is fairly limited when travelling by motorcycle, one of the things I always try and take with me is a good pair of walking tackies. Because some of the stuff out here that's worth going to have a look at will involve a short walk, maybe a long walk. But walking is not bad for you anyway. So right now we're going to get changed and then we're going to take a walk down the Sevilla Rock Art Trail.
The age of the rock art in the Cederberg ranges from around 8,000 years to as young as 200 years. And the artists responsible for most of the rock paintings in this area were sand hunter-gatherers, who lived all over South Africa for thousands of years before European colonization.
These Bushman paintings are both very special and sad. They're special because the whole Cederberg is a legacy of the Bushmen. The paintings tell a silent story of their lives. Some pictures depict actual events that happened, like hunting, gathering fruit. Others are more mythical. No one really knows what they meant. And they're sad because a whole people lived here. They lived in these caves, on these lands. There's an abundance of water, there's fruit and nuts, there was good hunting. And they're gone today because they were wiped out really with the arrival of the Europeans, either by their European diseases or sadly by their bullets. These people were hunted like vermin because they didn't understand the concept of ownership of land or ownership of the animals. They believed it belonged to everybody, and the two ways clashed, and it meant the end of them. But at least the paintings survive to tell the story, and it will probably be here forever. When you collect your permit for the Sevilla Trail from the reception at Traveller's Rest, they give you this pamphlet. And this is very handy because it shows you where to come and look for the rock paintings. For instance, if I'd come along here on my own, I probably wouldn't have thought to come look under this, what they call the balancing rock. But there we are. Now I know where to go. and I hope this rock is as balanced as they say it is. If you're staying at Traveller's Rest and you're a little bit lucky, you may be able to arrange a visit to Salmonslochter. I'm told it was a very special place where the Bushmen would gather. But we've been fairly fortunate. We've managed to arrange a visit there this afternoon. So we're just standing at the gate here, waiting for Skulk to come fetch us, because this is a guided experience only. You may not just go there. So we're feeling pretty privileged actually.
The Salmonslochter paintings are fascinating and mysterious. One of the most common themes to these paintings is elephants. And yet, looking around in this area, one cannot comprehend them around here. Other mysterious paintings resemble boats. There are many theories regarding these images, with some suggesting that they are evidence of traders, representations of shamanistic visions, or of antelope-headed serpents. Whatever they are haunting and beautiful.
So the Cederberg was also the southernmost battleground of the Second Anglo-Boer War. Small bands of Boer guerrillas penetrated this area from the Boer republics, hundreds of kilometers to the north. They came here looking to drum up support from the mostly Dutch farmers. And this they failed because while the Dutch had little sympathy for the English, they certainly had a fair notion of who was going to win the war.
As you stand out here and look at the amazing countryside around you, you'd be forgiven for wondering what they were out here fighting about. Besides it being bewilderingly beautiful, there isn't that much else out here. But there were some small battles and skirmishes, and as you travel around you'll find quite a few examples of Anglo-Boer War gravesites. I suppose the most famous of these would be the Lone Englishman's gravesite that stands at the top of the R364 just before the turn-off to the Liber Valley. And that's where we're going right now.
So while we were doing our research, we found two stories of how Lieutenant Close was possibly killed. Now the first story goes along the lines of a lone Englishman who approached a bunch of camped Boers and demanded they surrender. They tried to point out the folly of his predicament, and when he wouldn't back down, they shot him. I've been an Englishman myself. I refuse to believe that anybody could be that stupid. So I tend to believe the second story.
The more likely story is that Lieutenant Close was killed when a scouting party of 4 British soldiers was ambushed by the retreating Boers on January the 30th, 1901. Later, as the British forces under the command of Colonel de Lisle advanced on the last known position of the Boers, Lieutenant Clouse's body was found and the column stopped to bury him at Klipfontein where he fell.
So one of the more amazing parts about this story is his mother. She came out and erected this headstone you see here, and for years afterwards came out here every year on the anniversary of his death to lay a wreath. And this is no small feat when you consider this was the days before aeroplane travel. So it was a boat journey followed by a very dusty and very long car ride from Cape Town. And I think that's just amazing.
Well, we've paid our respects, and now there are two things we're really looking forward to. Firstly, our overnight accommodation is only 14 k's away from here, where we get to meet the 7th and the 8th generation of the Liber family. It's also time to leave the tar behind altogether. No more tar for the next 3 days. It's going to be fantastic.
And because we're leaving the tar behind, we're going to take you through just a few things that we do to this motorcycle to make it a little more comfortable on the gravel roads. And Henk, I suppose the first thing that comes to mind is tyre pressures.
Yes, Youre. We let the tyre pressures down mainly to give us a little bit more traction. And because the tyres form part of the bike's suspension in a way, softer tyres will also soften up your ride. This does become quite a personal thing though. Some guys don't let them down at all and others let them down quite a bit.
Everything is affected by the tyre pressure. Everything from your footprint or the contact patch with the earth, tyre wear, resistance to damage, and most importantly handling. So it's actually best to set yourself up so that you can adjust your tyre pressures up or down to suit the environment that you're riding in. But as a general rule, when I go off the black stuff, I immediately set my front tyre down to 2 bar, my back tyre down to 1.8 bar. You'll get some advice, you do some research, you get some kilometers under the belt, and you'll find out what works for you, because that's what's most important.
Now today's modern motorcycles have so many different electronic aids available to assist you with things like suspension setup and even engine mapping, to give you many different options when riding off-road. And in fact, to try and cover them all in a program like this could consume the whole episode. So we're just going to stick to the very basics.
And for us, that means traction control and ABS. And whether or not you use these systems will depend greatly on your skill, your experience, and also the quality of the system. The fact is, some of the more simple traction control systems will actually hinder you off-road because they'll be cutting power from the engine at the most inopportune moments, like when you're going over corrugations or trying to negotiate your way up a steep pass. The other thing is, once you learn how, a spinning back wheel can not only assist you in some situations, it can also be a whole lot of fun on a motorcycle.
It's the same thing with ABS. Rather work towards using your brakes properly. Things like locking up the rear wheel and predominantly using the front brake, because that's ultimately where most of your stopping power is. That said, ABS and traction control has come a long way over 20 odd years. Where earlier systems did have limitations, today's latest systems have become much better for on and off-road use. And riders of all abilities are happy to leave both systems on, especially during moderate intensity riding. Once again, try it all out, find what works for you. That's what we have done. And for us, well, we like to switch both systems off.
So generally, when you're riding off-road, the most control you're going to have over this motorcycle is when you are standing. Now, we're not advocating that you should be standing all the time, you obviously won't. But there are two things that standing does do. First of all, it dramatically lengthens your vision, which is very important, as we're going to explain to you just now. And second of all, and perhaps strangely enough, when you're riding over more technical terrain, standing actually minimizes fatigue. So right now, I'm going to ask Henk to stand up on the motorcycle. We're going to take you through what's called the very basic standing position.
Right, Warren.
Right, so if we're going to start at the bottom here, you'll notice Henk's foot is more or less in the middle of the foot peg, making like a pivot point out of his foot so that he can slide backwards and forwards on the bike. This in fact makes him neutral to the bike. For more technical type of terrain, you want to have a slight bend in the knee here. But the reality is, on longer, less technical sections, you will end up riding with a straight or locked leg. It's just more practical, it's more comfortable, and it's much less taxing on your energy. From there, we want a slight bend in the hips so that the body's forward, the back is nice and straight, the arms are loose and relaxed, making like a bow shape here. As you can see, the elbows are out, his head is straight above the handlebars, and he's looking up and ahead. And I'm going to ask Henk to explain to you why it's so important that you need to be looking up and straight ahead.
Very important. You see what's happening right down here by my front wheel? Well, it's actually too late to do anything about it, now that I'm already on top of it. So what you want to do is scan the road ahead anything from 20 to 100 meters. Look for possible obstacles so you can start planning your line around or in fact over them. This way you can plan what to do before you have to do it. Very important. And it goes hand in hand with target fixation, which we'll discuss in a later episode.
The Bido Valley lies to the east of Clanwilliam, in the northern reaches of the Cederberg, approximately 52 kilometers by road. It is both stunning and seemingly desolate.
So the first views of the Bido Valley from up here are just absolutely amazing. But the one thing that I love about the country is how simple things are. Our forefathers never put too much thought into naming things. For instance, we're about to go down Hoekse Berg, so called because the original farm at the bottom was called the Hoek, so the mountain above it just naturally became Hoekse Berg. Same as Traveller's Rest, where we were earlier, where the travellers rested. They're all simple names, but they're meaningful.
Now a lot of people will think once they've come down Hoekse Berg back there that they're in the Bido Valley. And they kinda are, but the valley actually runs east for about 30 kilometers until it crosses over the Doing River and you begin to enter the Karoo.
And in a good year, at the end of winter, the Bido becomes one of the most beautiful places in the world, as this remote valley with its amazing views, beauty, peace and quiet is transformed as millions and millions of flowers make their appearance, creating a colorful spectacle that everyone should at least see once in their lifetime. When this valley is in full bloom, you will hardly believe your eyes as you travel around, with flowers just about everywhere you look. The Liber family's history goes back hundreds of years, in fact to around 1750. Today Barry, his wife Mariette, and their children Barent and Collier still stay in the original farmhouse that was built in 1830 on their farm, Murtenhof.
Barry, sê vir ons 'n bietjie van die geskiedenis van die plaas. Ek verstaan, dis al generasies in jou familie en julle is die Liber familie is al baie lank tyd in die vallei.
Ja, Warren, ek is die 7de geslag op die grond en ek is die 5de geslag in hierdie huis. Hierdie huis hier agter ons is 'n 1830 gebou. Die eerste Liber Family huis was op die plaas Bido, dis so 3,5 km van hier af in die Bido Vallei af. En hy is gebou in 1775. So dis 'n lang tyd wat ons al hier is. Maar wat interessant is, ons begraafplaas hierbo, lê al die geslagte begrawe. My pa is nou daar die 4de geslag wat nou daar begrawe is. So die getuienis daarvan is hierso op die plaas en ek dink dit is wat min families regtig kan sê, om dit as jy nou weet hoe lyk vandag se begraafplaas.
Martinov is very much orientated towards tourism and offers various forms of accommodation and even meals on request. Barry has also created a 4x4 and hiking route that shows off all the natural wonders in the area. He has a wealth of knowledge of interesting facts about the history of the area. Besides the abundance of fantastic views, the highlights must be 2 sets of potholes and one of the most amazing waterfalls in the world. Over millions of years, the sand, pebbles and rocks carried by the Bido River have eroded large cylindrical potholes into the bedrock, creating a set of fascinating waterfalls surrounded by intriguing rock sculptures. At the uppermost potholes, where swimming is compulsory in summer, one can see the start of the pipeline which takes this life-giving water to 3 of the farms in the area.
Wow man, we've had an absolute blast today, and I think many memories have been made. This is mostly thanks to one very special guy, Barry Liber. I cannot say enough how we appreciate the time he's given us today. It really was an interesting and amazing day.
And Barry, well, he may also be the key to getting to meet another very interesting local. If you can in fact call him that, because, well, he stays high up above everybody else in the area, way up above the Kreiberg Pass, in the middle of what we know as the old post route. And that's where we're heading in the next episode, so make sure you don't miss it.
Look what you're missing. Look what you're missing. There's a world for you to see. Paradise to set you free. Look what you're missing. Look what you're missing. Come along, I'll take you there. An adventure we can share. There is a place, there is a moment, there is a feeling, an escape from your ordinary way.